In this video, I will demonstrate connecting the Avid S3L to a Dante audio network using the PreSonus AVB-D16, which is the 16-channel I/O AVB-to-Dante bridge with sample rate conversion and clock isolation. Several of you have asked in the comments whether it's possible to connect the AVB-D16 to the S3L. I know of at least one of you who were successful, but until now, I didn't have a device to test it for myself. I reached out to a friend of mine, Stefano, who's the CEO of Plus Music, to see if he had access to one. He reached out to a friend of his, and he was able to get a hold of a device for me to test and borrow for a few weeks. And now I'm making this video. For those of you who haven't seen the AVB-D16, this is what it looks like. It's quite a small device. On the front, we've got some LEDs here for Dante, Dante activity, primary, secondary, AVB, and there's a reset button to reset the AVB. On the back, we have Ethernet port for AVB, as well as primary and secondary for Dante, and power. To note, the Dante can be either set up as redundant or as switched, so that you could actually loop through if you needed. It's small enough that if you wanted to put it into a rack space next to the AVB-D6, next to the SW5E switch by PreSonus, that would work. So if I turn it around that way, you can see all the ports. I measured it, and you can easily fit it into a 1U rack space. Let's look at the AVB-D16 configuration that I'll be demonstrating. In the diagram, you'll see that I'm sending some audio as analog via XLR into my stage boxes, and other audio via Dante. I'm roughly replicating the configuration we use at ICF, and I feel this demonstrates a typical configuration that you might encounter. The audio I'll be playing includes the band coming in via analog, while all the backing tracks, the cue, and click tracks are all coming in via Dante, just as they came in at ICF, where I recorded the material. I want to note that while a single network switch can be used for both AVB and Dante, and technically this Netgear GS724, when I did this, I technically used just that switch and did not use the PreSonus. But I don't recommend that unless you have a high-end switch capable of isolating the traffic. I ended up having to completely isolate all of the AVB traffic from the Dante traffic and had to mess with some of the Ethernet protocol stuff inside the switch. I was able to get it working, but unless you have a higher end switch where you can do that, then I don't recommend it. They just don't play well together. The AVB D16 manual also discourages network sharing on page 4. One downside of having two networks is that the MAC you connect to the networks will either require two Ethernet adapters, or you will need to move the cable back and forth between the networks. I recommend two Ethernet adapters. I like to start my patching as close to the source as possible and work towards the destination. That means I'm going to start with Dante. To configure Dante, I'll use the Dante controller. So, Command space, Dante controller. And first things first, let's configure a network interface. It's definitely not on my wireless interface. I know that it's on EN6, but if any of you ever have noticed, it's kind of annoying that unless you know that EN6, in my case, is the right interface, it's a pain to figure out which one's which. So I'll go ahead and choose it, but I want to show you a trick. If you open the network preference pane, so it would be that one there. It's technically the same as up here in the Apple menu, System Preferences, Network. You'll notice that I have the interface names in front of each of these. Well, in my case, EN6, the way I do this is I click down here on the Advanced button, go to Hardware. Here I can see the MAC address. I'm going to open the terminal, do an ifconfig. That gives me a whole bunch of stuff. I can actually do grep for 0050. That's good enough. And then I'm going to do an A2. Actually, let's do B2. And here you can see EN6. I mean, I can scroll up here and find it somewhere. It'll be up there if you want to look, but this pulled it out. So that MAC address, as you can see matches, is EN6. Okay, grand, that's fine. Hit cancel here. I can now, with that interface selected, hit the circle and 3 dots, rename service. So I give it EN6 plus some name that's useful to me. I've gone through each and every one of my network devices. Obviously this one here, I haven't attached it in a while, so I don't know for sure which one it is. I probably could figure it out. Hardware? No, doesn't show. Anyway, that's a quick trick you can use, and if you're dealing with Dante, it's a super useful trick. Anyway, let's close those. Now over here in Dante, we've got the devices. I'm going to be sending my signals with a Ferrofish A32Dante, and I'll be receiving them with the AVB-D16. So let me go ahead and expand out the Ferrofish, and I'm going to treat the 1 through 16 as stage 1, 17 through 32 as stage 2, and so I've chosen to use this third one, 33 through 48. So, not that one, let's open here, and come down to the AVB-D16, and quick little trick, because I know that I'm going to do all of these. I'm just going to hold Control and click up here, and it patches them all. All right, the Dante is done. Next, we'll patch AVB. For this to work, you'll need to have made a one-time configuration change to the E3 engine to allow the 8-channel AVB streams. I'll put a link to the video where I've shown this in the past down in the description. I'm going to start by opening the AVB controller using the AVB-util command via terminal. So let's open terminal and AVB-util -- controller. Close that. This shows all of the AVB devices I have. Those of you who've seen my videos know that I have quite a few. I'm going to hit Command 4, which was technically, I'm going to open this connection matrix here. And this is showing all of the active connections. Currently I have none. So as we're going to be sending the signals from the AVB into the engine, so it's going to be these two here. And I'm going to patch it into 33 to 40, and then 41 to 48. So one thing to notice is that the AVB sync is blinking. The reason for that is that the device uses the input signal for timing, and we haven't patched an input signal. So let me go ahead and come up here. I'm going to patch the same channels back into the AVB-D16. That should give it a return signal. And if we wait here for a little bit, there we go. We have a solid AVB sync light. So we now know that we're synced. One way to verify that that's needed, let's come up here to the entity controller. And if we come down to the D16, we can scroll down here to the clock domain. And you see the clock source is input stream. You could set it to the internal clock. I don't recommend that. It's best to use the input stream. But that's another way to, for it to verify, or for you to verify that yes, that's where it's getting its clock from. All right, we're now ready to patch the S3L. I'm going to patch my system slightly differently today versus my previous videos to show you additional options for your environment. Rather than patching the AVB signals in the Pro Tools tab, I'm going to patch them in the Stage 3 tab. So let's go here. We're going to come here to the patch bay and to Stage 3. First thing you'll notice is that the boxes are grayed out. If you go to a normal stage box, I have a stage 2. You you can see that it's a blue background. Here in stage 3, I don't have a stage 3, but this is where I want to patch them. So I'm going to start with the tracks, and I'll come here to 1 and 2. One thing you're going to notice is this Pro Tools button appeared. So let me unpatch them. You see it's gone. Bring it back. I am now going to click that Pro Tools button because for me, I'm going to be bringing those signals in from Pro Tools. I'm now going to go ahead and repeat this for the rest of my channels. And I'll of course speed the video up because it's probably boring for you. And that should be it. All right, let's play some music to verify that things are working properly.
Okay.
Check out.
Faithful God in E.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
You probably noticed pretty quick I have the click channel.
2, 3, 4.
I'm leaving the click channel in as well as the cue so that you can hear what I normally would hear at the monitoring port. So you notice I have the MD come in, I have the tracks.
Pre-chorus.
Here.
3, 4.
Tracks are coming in via Pro Tools. I could turn that off and you'll see there is no tracks. But there we go. From that aspect, we're good.
Chorus. 3, 4.
That's all. As you can see, that's all it took to configure the device. I'm now bringing signals in via Dante. Yeah. Once things are set up, there is really no difference between analog signals coming from the stage boxes and the signals from Dante. In practice, it works just like the AVB patching from the Moto devices that I've demonstrated in earlier videos. As in some previous videos, I want to do a quick evaluation of pros and cons as well as costs. On this slide, you can see that a few different pros listed, 16 channels of Dante to AVB bridging, which is equivalent to a stage 16 as far as signal count. The device is super easy to set up and configure. It's easy to get from multiple vendors. The cost is reasonable in my opinion. And then finally, the Dante can be configured for redundant operation if you need that. A couple of cons though. The AVB cannot be configured for redundant operation. It would need 2 Ethernet ports. The S3L wasn't really designed to have other devices in there for that, so it really doesn't matter. But it does mean that you're probably going to need an AVB switch in order to operate and easily configure it and things like that. So there's a bit of extra cost. Secondly, in my experience, it does not retain its patching after I restart my S3L. It's an easy solution when I set up for Soundcheck. Then I would have to just go and manually do the patching each time. Not a big deal, but I do want to call that out as a con. From a cost perspective, you can get the AVB-D16 in the US for about $700. Here in Europe, it's around 600 euros. Most likely you're going to need the AVB switch as well. It's an additional $500 if you don't have one, or 429 euros. And then I talked earlier about the switches that I use. The absolute cheapest switch I have here at home, and I tested and it works, was the Netgear GS105, a little 5-port gigabit switch. You can get that for like 35 US dollars, or about the same in euros. Finally, at ICF, we send our signals, the tracks, the click, and the cue. Those are all sent from Ableton Live by the drummer. So the drummer's controlling when the click is going, things of that nature. That's all coming via the Dante virtual sound card. I didn't demonstrate that today, but that's how we do it at ICF, so I thought I'd include that price as well. That's 50 US dollars. So if you're needing to connect your S3L to a Dante network, the PreSonus AVB-D16 is actually an excellent device to do that. It's incredibly simple to set up, gives you full 16 channels of bidirectional Dante to AVB bridging. As with any non-Avid AVB product, it does require a one-time change to the E3 engine configuration. I've shown that in a previous video. I'll link it in the description. It's a simple change, one time. The cost-benefit ratio of this device is great, so I would highly recommend it. Special thanks again to Stefano at Plus Music for arranging that I could borrow this device for 4 weeks just so I could test it out, film it, things like that. And until next time, thank you much.